Peter, there are so many people that, watch or listen to our podcast that are just getting started with their franchise concept. And they have so much uncertainty. Of course, we all hire a consultant to help us. We get the attorney, they get the FDD done. But there's something beyond that you dealt with 1-800 Plumber plus Air, that there was magic in the system that you were able to apply to patch it up. What were some of those key, maybe 2 or 3 key components, would you say, that you'd be willing to share that were really critical that you were able to apply right away to patch it up, that you were not seeing in the brand that you worked for?
Yeah, there's a number of them. I'll give you a couple. The first one being the in-home experience. I put a lot of emphasis on this. In home services, it's all about making impressions, building rapport with your customers. And when I realized that some of that was being done with multiple roles of people, for example, I'm not going to mention the brand. I don't want to speak ill will of any brand, but certain models in the drywall repair space have an estimator and then a technician, or the owner is going to do the estimates and then or maybe you're estimating the job without actually going to see the work.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially could be getting a photo emailed to you or a video emailed to you. And I started to realize that the biggest component here was you're not getting a person, a face of the business in the person's home. There's no value building. There's no opportunity for a technician to sell themselves, to talk to the customer, to educate the customer. Essentially what we refer to that as the in-home experience. There's none of that. And within the 1-800 Plumber plus Air model, that is what we emphasize. We're trying to change the way that people perceive home services when a technician is in the home. In that light, there's some other components to it. Our software is a big component to it. So we have some of the best industry software in home services that we have partnered with organizations like Service Titan and Hireology and others, where we can hire great talent, train great talent on how to execute in the home. And again, kind of just going back to that owner component, our owners are not required to do this, just like they're not required to do this in the 1-800 Plumber plus Air model. We don't want our owners knocking on doors, turning wrenches, or doing estimates. So we're going to have a model that's very similar in nature there. So when I was working in the 1-800 Plumber plus Air model, started to pick up on what, as you alluded to, some of these magic pieces, some of these secret sauce items. And I'm not going to go into all of them, but for the most part, the entire model is replicated just in the drywall space. So that should be very attractive. We're built around technology, an owner that has no role in the consumer transaction. They're focused on being the visionary, the captains of the ship, scaling the business, putting all of that energy into beyond today. And that's what's going to drive up sales, that drives revenue, that drives training opportunities with your technician. And that's where we find a lot of success with both brands. Has anyone, this is just, if you want to put this on the pod, that's fine, but I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Has anyone gotten a notification that a franchise agreement has been signed on your podcast? Like
no,
before, has anybody?
No, they have not. We have hold on. We have breaking news.
Yeah, is that okay? Can we make that? Can we make that announcement?
Yeah, let's make this announcement now. What do we got?
Yep. So we have a single territory placement here in southeastern San Antonio with 1-800 Plumber plus Air. Just in new notification, signed agreement.
Is this your first Texas franchise?
No. It's actually our second owner in the San Antonio market now.
Okay. Peter, with you being involved in franchise development, I obviously got from your background that you didn't have franchise development experience beforehand, right? This was your first job in FranDev, was it not?
Not necessarily, no.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I wouldn't say that. I was the CEO of my own franchise in the sign and graphics space. It was a franchise that I started called Sign Me Up. So this was my first experience in franchising. Franchise my own company. As the CEO for an emerging brand, you kind of did development yourself for a while. I didn't hire a service, or back then there weren't too many FSOs back then. So it was either you're doing it yourself or you're hiring an outside broker or consultant to help you. So I had a lot of experience. We grew that brand to just under 10 locations in just a short period of time. Fast Signs came around and said, look, we like you. We see what you're doing up here. We want to acquire you. And after a couple of rounds of negotiation, we ended up pulling the trigger on an acquisition there. And that was my first bit of experience in franchising, and it was a nice ride.
And how long did you do that for?
So we franchised that company in 2015, and we made that sale in 2019.
So now being in Fran Dev, what have you seen that has changed over the past few years in Fran Dev, especially coming out of COVID?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. There's a lot more people that are looking to diversify than ever before. I feel like that's definitely something that I've seen. I think home services is getting a supercharged look over the last year. When COVID was first happening, I felt like there were a lot of people looking for recession resistant franchises, essential franchises. And when you're looking in that arena, there's nothing better than the trades. You know, you can get into plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofing, painting. Some of that was very exciting. And I think that with some of the content that people are coming out with these days, myself included, around how quickly you can scale a multi-million dollar operation
Mm-hmm.
in home services versus, say, traditional brick and mortar retail service businesses, how easy it is to get there, how faster you can get there with a little bit of time and education and effort, and at a significantly lower initial investment. I think that that word is starting to get out a bit
Mm-hmm.
over the last several years. I've seen it. I've seen it enough. And then lately, and this is kind of I've been feeling this way for about 3 months now. There's been a significant amount of interest in candidates looking to become franchisees in systems that are not going to be replaced by AI. I get that a lot lately, especially people coming from the IT world, cybersecurity world, where they're seeing really significant penetration by AI in these markets, and people are being laid off and so on and so forth, that they're looking at businesses where they feel that are never going to be replaced by some artificial intelligence. And, you know, I don't think that there's going to be ever a way where AI can fix a faucet or fix an AC system. I don't foresee that to be the case, but a lot of people are feeling that way, and that's what I'm seeing out there right now.
Yeah, they see the writing on the wall. When it comes to franchising, especially in home services, I mean, it has obviously exploded, the home service franchise sector. Even more so, if you drill down even further, private equity firms have just gobbled up home service franchises. What's been a challenge for you guys, or has it been challenging, a home service franchise such as yourself, where you're not private equity owned?
Well, I'll tell you right now, we have private equity knocking on our door pretty consistently for an acquisition. We're not really looking for that as an organization. We don't feel like we are going to go down that path at all. And I think a lot of that has to do with our leadership team. Our CEO and then our vice president of operations are brothers. They're Mike and Mark Collins, and they are fifth generation master plumbers, and they were born in the trades. They're not private equity based they're not a private equity based leadership team, and they care very passionately about making a significant impact on the way that people perceive the plumbing and HVAC spaces. Now, that's something that I care passionately about, even though I'm not an owner of this franchise, is that as a consumer, the experience that we get in the plumbing and HVAC verticals are excruciatingly painful. Technicians come into your home looking a certain way, acting a certain way, speaking a certain way, and treating this as a money, in a lot of cases, a money grab. And I'm not sure if you've ever had an experience like this, Frank. Being a fellow Long Islander, like, there's tons of guys that can be rough around the edges in our backyard. I recently had somebody come into my home and diagnose a $3,000 issue and didn't care to talk to me about my wants, my needs. They just
Mm-hmm.
saw the problem and said, to fix this problem, it's going to cost you this. And if you don't want to do it, I'm on to my next opportunity. I'm on to my
Right.
next job. Like, I'm fully booked. I need an answer now. And that was kind of like a rushed experience. As at the time we're filming this, it's already August, but when the summer began, you know, I had somebody come by and take a look at my AC before I turned it on, make sure that it was ready to go, it was tuned up properly. It was a $600 repair. Last year, it was a $300 repair.
Mm.
It's the same repair I got to do every year, So the increase in pricing has gone up, and I started to realize like maybe there's something here when it comes to what the message has always been coming from Mike and Mark Collins, is that there's people always telling you you need something when you really don't, showing up when they're not supposed to, like arriving late a lot of the times, never showing up at all, perhaps. There's a ton of that, and that's what gives plumbing and HVAC a bad reputation. So when you look at what the 1-800 Plumber Plus Air model is trying to do, and what we're setting sail, we don't actually feel private equity is going to solve that problem. We feel like we have a better chance of solving the challenge of perception of how people look at when a plumber or an HVAC technician comes in. Essentially, we're trying to be the household name in the country right now, and we feel like we have the best branding to do that. That 1-800 notoriety is something that not too many people can write off. Imagine, 1-800 Got Junk did it. Why can't 1-800 Plumber Plus Air do it? When you call 1-800 Plumber, you're going to get somebody's office locally to you. And we see that as the opportunity to really make a significant impact.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.